There were footsteps in the attic, but the floor had already been nailed shut. I'm the one who files stories never meant to be spoken aloud, not after dark. Welcome to what I call the still ash rite. If you've ever felt a silence that almost seemed placed there, this one is for you. Moonlight drifts across time zones. I feel its cool weight on my skin, even now. Dust swirls in a rhythm that should have settled. Here, on a table half swallowed by shadow. A rusted lantern left burning, its flame pulses, quietly defiant. Over straw and sorrow, undeterred by centuries. Nothing living remains here. 6 souls, Andreas, Cecilia, Victoria, her children, Cecilia and Josef, and the maid Maria, were struck down in March 1922 by a mattock in what remains one of Bavaria's most chilling unsolved crimes. Yet the lantern challenges that extinction. Its glow becomes a ritual carried around the world. Villagers lit candles for something they named the Hinterkaifeck, a midnight vigil of light held against the dark far beyond Bavaria. I traced the lantern's corroded handle, hotter than memory should allow. Its glass flickers with stories unnamed. I bring it across oceans. I bring it to your quiet corner of the world. From Kyoto's midnight hush to Cape Town's late hour, join me in this quiet vigil. Let the lantern's glow stretch across our shared hush. Notice how the question lingers, not to pierce the silence, but to breathe with it. I carry this flame in penance, not to relive the horror, but to remember what the lantern cannot forget. Andreas Gruber found a Munich newspaper on his porch, though no one in Hinterkaifeck subscribed. An impossible detail like the lantern's undying flame, a scrape of metal on wood, a hush stretching beyond geography, a lantern's glow, defying the dark. I press the lantern close. Its heat hums against my palm. I sometimes wonder if certain houses remember more than we do. If you've ever sensed a moment caught between sleep and memory, you're already inside this story. Would you hold this lantern aloft? On a windless night in your own corner of the world, let the hush wrap around you. Feel the weight of your time, your place. Carry it with this lantern's light. I carry regret here. Where 6 voices were swallowed by dark, the still ash rite has only just begun. Notice how she pauses, as if listening for footsteps that never left. I feel the lantern's glow shift in my palm, its rusted metal warm against my fingertips. The remaining flame flickers. A living relic. I recall the chill of that barn. Dense straw underfoot, echoes of a child's sob silenced by steel. The same lantern once sat by a locked attic door, while Victoria's maid fled, claiming voices upstairs. If you've ever wondered how dread gathers like dust, notice this. Footprints led to the barn, but none led back out. A stranger walked in and vanished. That hush remained, not a single footstep returning through the snow. The lantern's flame dims as I speak its name aloud. An act of presence, yet impossible to trace its spark. I cradle the lantern close to my chest. The flame sputters. My breath catches. It is no longer just wood and oil. It is something more. a witness to a ritual I cannot fully name. They called it the Hinterkaifeck, the lantern's vigil for what never left. They believed the light could coax a spirit back, or freeze it in place. I lean forward, eyes swallowed by the lantern's glow. The metal is rough, biting into my skin. I taste dust and sorrow in the air. On March 31st, 1922, Andreas discovered footprints and a Munich newspaper he never bought. A trace of outside crossing into their hush. He carried his own lantern into the attic and heard nothing. If you've ever tried to call out into silence, you know the echo doesn't answer back. I press the lantern against my ear. Its faint heartbeat matches mine. Its scent, smoke and metal, holds a secret. The lantern's flame dims again. Its light grows unstable. A flutter, almost like a heartbeat gone weak. This flame has changed. It's no longer defiant. It trembles. It apprehends. Notice what she doesn't say here. I don't claim to know who snuffed its flame or why it still fights. In rural Bavaria, it was believed burning a lantern where death fell could tether the unquiet soul to its place. They hoped it would anchor them or burn them out. Would you have stayed to feed the animals while the dead lay in straw and shadow? Why feed the cattle but not the living? Why leave the lantern burning, as if waiting for someone or something to return? I sometimes wonder if the lantern burned for them or at them. The flame sags. The room grows colder. The lantern flickers at the question left unspoken. The lantern's flame flares suddenly. An ember of warmth against cold memory. Its glow catches shards of wood on the floor. I smell barn dust and old blood. I remember Andreas stepping into the attic, lantern in hand. His breath a prayer into dark rafters. He'd found footprints leading from the woods, but none leading back. If you've ever felt a night ripple beneath your skin, you know when something doesn't fit. 6 bodies in straw, stacked, silent. A barn door left open, animals fed while 6 lay cold, and yet no tracks left the property, no footprints fading back into the forest. No one heard the mattock descend, but the lantern saw it all. I pressed the lantern against its metal collar. It hisses, tiny protest in the silence. Its flame bending toward the truth. This object has become a question. It shines on emptiness. It trembles with unresolved answers. They named this the Hinterkaifeck, the vigil of unseen watchers. In old Bavarian lore, a light left burning at a murder site could pierce the veil between the living and the lost. My fingers graze the cracked glass. The heat warms my palm, then recoils. I taste iron and ashes in the air. On the night Alexander's livestock was fed, and fire burned in the hearth, Inspector Reingruber noted footprints. That went in, but never came out again. Those prints walked into memory, but never out. Would you have stayed awake if the lantern's glow was your only companion? Now the lantern sputters. Its flame bends anxious, less defiant, as if sensing its light cannot hide all truths. It's become fragile, uncertain, like memory itself. Notice how the flame shudders, not from wind, but from what it knows. A shaft of light on cold stone, a heartbeat in burnt oil, a question burning. I sometimes think the lantern mourns. It holds grief in its glass chamber, light trapped behind rust and regret. They say the lantern wasn't only for the dead, it was meant to guide the guilty, to make them see what they did. Uneaten bread on the kitchen table, a still warm hearth. They stayed, they lingered. But who? I hold this flame partly in penance for keeping such silence for so long. The flame drops. Shadows stretch longer. The lantern begs the question, who lit it and why? The lantern's flame now glows soft and anxious, its light like a breath caught in winter's throat. I hold it under my chin, eyes tracing its fragile arc. I hear the barn door creak in memory, wood against night air. That same door that shut behind each victim. 4 in the barn, 2 inside the house. If you've ever felt tension knot beneath your ribs, you'll understand this pause, this shift within the light. The lantern's flame is smaller now, reserved, wary, yet still glowing where darkness gathers. We trace wounds, footprints, newspaper delivered from Munich, keys stolen, locks broken, murmurs in the attic. All logic says the flame should have died, but it lives on, smaller, uncertain, refusing to yield. I cup the lantern, breath warming its glass. I press my palm against its heat. The flame suddenly flares, bright then retreating. It is like grief erupting, sudden, involuntary, before collapsing again into its quiet vigil. They whispered of the Hinterkaifeck, but now this flame knows its own fear. In Bavarian whispers, they believed a lantern that flinched marked the presence of guilt, not grief. I feel tiny beads of wax cool against my fingertips. Dust drifts down, settles on the flame. Its warmth presses against my chest. I taste copper and old hush. The killer, or killers, remained on the farm for 3 days, feeding animals, eating meals, burning fires in the hearth, feeding the lantern's ritual flame without explanation. They did not leave. I rub the lantern's rusted handle. Its pulse matches mine. Could this fragile glow repel a weight of 6 silenced lives? The flame trembles again. Its shape wavers. A new flicker, less stubborn, more fragile, as though uncertain it belongs here any longer. It has changed, fragile sentinel instead of defiant beacon. Notice how the flame hesitates, not from wind, but from what it feels. If you've ever carried a burden in candlelight, you know how shadows cling. I feel the lantern's uncertainty echo in me. My penance feels heavier. My regret grows. A rusted mattock lies under hay in the barn rafters, an echoing weight that no lantern can lift. Would you stay with this one trembling light, knowing it holds more questions than answers? I press the lantern against my heart once more. Let it tremble against the weight of what I've carried. Let it burn, or quaver, but never vanish. The lantern's glow is faint now, its glass warm but weary in my hand. I cradle it as twilight gathers dust on the floorboards. I recall the barn, straw flushed with sunset, the spot where 4 bodies lay covered in hay. A chilling contrast against the hearth fire still burning. If you've ever traced shadows in old walls, you know memory isn't fixed. This small flame refuses to die, even though the farm was torn down in 1923, and a memorial shrine stands in its place. Yet the lantern burns, as if guarding what was lost. I set it on the gravestone beneath an oak, its light a vigil in a place where nothing remains, and still the flame flickers. A ghost of ritual, a whisper of what was endured. They once called it the Hinterkaifeck, but legends grew. An echo in other lands, the candle's midnight vigil, a shared breath against the dark. My fingers trace the lantern's rusted handle. Cool night air enters my lungs. I taste moss and memory. In the days after the murders, the stranger stayed, feeding cattle, burning fires, burning paperwork, leaving the bodies undisturbed. They did not leave. If you've ever watched a candle beside a gravestone, you'll know how light reminds us that absence still breathes. A hush drapes the memorial shrine. The lantern hums quietly, as if waiting for someone to listen. Notice how the light refuses rest, not from defiance, but duty. I don't know if I've remembered this right, but the flame still trembles when I near the oak. I carry this ritual with regret, because stories forgotten can weigh heavier than stone. They say this ritual, born in one farmhouse, echoes in distant fields and ancient woods, a lonely light held against all forgetting, but no one remembers who began it. The lantern's light leaks over mossed words, names you may never know. Would you let this lantern walk with you tonight, through fields of memory, under your own midnight sky, not forgetting, refusing to remember, holding memory alight? The lantern's light is tender now, a single pulse in the graveyard hush. I hold it beneath the oak, where moss breathes age. The air tastes of damp stone and memory. I feel the lantern's warmth, gentle, insistent, like a heartbeat against night. If you've ever noticed how grief blooms in the dark, you'll understand this trembling glow. Its flame should have died. The farm fell. The shrine was placed. The world moved on. Yet here it burns, alone, on no hearth, against no home. I bow and set the lantern down. Its light shrinks, stutters, then steadies again. It holds the night open, keeps the space between then and now alive. I whisper its name, amongst names etched in stone. The lantern answers, softly, "This is the last Hinterkaifeck, the final vigil under oak and memory." Legends say if the last light never goes out, some stories refuse to sleep. My palm lingers on the cool glass. A bead of dew rolls down the gravestone. I taste the night. They said the killer stayed for days, burning food, feeding cattle, yet never stepping beyond that porch. No one left traces. Only that one lantern, still burning despite the world's quiet. A drop of dew on rusted metal. A pulse where there should be silence. A final ember of something undyed. Notice how it flickers again. Not in defiance, but in acceptance. This lantern began in a kitchen, burned through halls of sorrow, flew across oceans in memory, stood vigil at a gravestone. And now it waits to be carried home, or left here holding vigil. There's nothing else to do tonight but drift, and let the flame guide what remains, under your own sky. Remember the lantern you held. If this left you feeling a little haunted, there are more stories waiting. You're safe now. Sleep well. I'll be here when the lights go low again. Maybe you've heard it too, just before sleep.